Good morning, everyone. Mike and Corey here today. We're going to talk about some, I want to say exciting. It's exciting to us. Might not be exciting to you. Maybe it shouldn't be. But anyways, Nvidia is coming out with earnings later today. So that will definitely be exciting news after the bell. We're going to also talk about, or I'll at least kind of give an update on Bitcoin after Steve's excellent coverage yesterday of what's going on in the digital asset. I think digital asset sounds so much better than cryptocurrency, but the digital asset space. And then Corey's going to talk about a stock that he's kind of been watching, as well as sector rotation and some of the indicators that he sees in the market. So I have to say, this is a financial education presentation. You must do your own due diligence on anything that you see in this presentation. More disclaimer information can be found on AnkerstarWealth.com, and the opinions expressed are mine and Corey's alone. So let me get started here. It's been, Steve, I watched Steve's video yesterday, and of course it's like doom and gloom after 4 days of the market being down after it hit all-time highs last week. That's standard. I mean, guess what? It's like the Weather Channel. It's kind of boring to report, oh, it's sunny, it's cloudy, it's sunny, it's cloudy. It's like much more interesting to say there's a thunderstorm coming in, or there's a potential for a hurricane. We don't want hurricanes. It's the same with the stock market. If it's kind of slowly going on its way up, it's kind of boring. But it's like, wow, there's all kinds of exciting news and that. So that's what you get to see. It's clickbait. That's much more interesting. It's much more interesting to me too. So, but if it changes your investing thesis, if it scares you out of the market, turn away, don't look. It'll be all right. Or do what I do. Look at the 50-year trend. Look at the 10-year trend, and you'll be like, yeah, it'll be up in the end. So, with that today, after look at the headline: S&P 500 rises for the first time in 5 sessions. Like, oh my gosh, it was down 4 days in a row, and now it's actually up. And more importantly to me, the Nasdaq's up 0.88% today. But the big news comes out later after the bell is Nvidia comes out with their earnings. So, you take your Mag 7, Nvidia is the last one to report, I think, pretty sure. This will be news. So in the past, when Nvidia has come out with earnings, they've been priced to perfection, and they still have delivered. When you're priced to perfection, if your earnings miss just a tiny bit, if something is in there unexpected, especially if you guide lower, that thing's going to sell off. Nvidia is not priced to perfection now. It's in the, I think it's in the 120s or low 130s as of yesterday. So it's been as high as 150. So I do think there's actually room that it could go up, but there's also room that it could go down too. They will, probably talk about the impact of DeepSeek on anything. And then really the big thing is, what do they guide? What do they say the rest of 2025 is going to be like? If they come in and say, we have so many back orders to buy our chips, we're selling them as fast as we make them, that'll be some good news. So, and the market will move accordingly. Nvidia is no longer the biggest company. They're, I don't know, second or third. Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, all fighting for that top spot. But it's a significant chunk of the S&P 500, probably I want to say 5 to 6% of it. So other things, Steve talked about Bitcoin. Now this is the difference between a Bitcoin is they don't really have earnings. They don't really have they do not have earnings. They do not have a quarterly report. It's all, you would say, okay, it's all supply and demand, but guess what? Their supply is set. There's 21 million coins. So really it's all demand. Really, Bitcoin moves with demand because there's nothing else that can move it. Everything else is known. So we're seeing it hold here, or I think it's touched into the 86s. But, of course, when it was at 108, a month ago, you were slapping high fives, saying, wow, this thing's, wow. It's at 87. A year ago, a little bit over a year ago, when the ETFs came out, it was at 42. So 42 times 2, 84. Okay, it's doubled still. It's still doubled. And if you look at this trend that I'm showing here, you can see from March to November, it just was in one channel. Now, it went as high as over, I think it counted it 5 times, it went over 70,000. And then there's other times it dropped to right around 53, 54, from 70 down to 54. And it feels painful, but when you step back and you look, it's like, well, it's pretty channeled. We may be experiencing the same thing here. It may be in this channel, maybe between 110 and 80. Now, when it's at 110, you feel really good. When it's down to 80 or 87 or 86, you're like, oh, I don't like that. But that's what happens with it, and that's what we're watching. Has the thesis changed long term? Absolutely not. So we'll continue to watch it. And the last one I'll just mention, because sometimes people are like, oh, I love these aggressive stocks. Super Micro has been just a crazy stock, never been in our portfolio, although I'm sure some of our ETFs pick it up. This company, shot up on the NASDAQ. I think it got added to the S&P 500, couldn't deliver their accounting statements, went from, I don't know, 80 or 90 down into the 20s, because guess what? When you can't deliver your accounting statements, there's fraud concerns. It got not delisted. It got removed from the S&P 500. It was on the verge of being delisted from the NASDAQ. It was the deadline for their financials was a couple days ago, and as of the day it was due, it was still not in. So it's like that student that I got to turn in that paper that's going to save me, and you're like, if you're the teacher, you're like, I'll believe it when I see it. The stock went down 12% that day. And then they got their homework assignment in. They got their accounting statements in, and the stock went up 22%. That whole thing makes me nervous. I mean, you must, in the financial world, even though they got their homework in, I still question whether, like, is this solid? If you can't produce your financial statements on a timely basis, if you delay them and make people nervous, how well is the company run within? So even though they got it, even though you say, wow, I wish I was in that stock when it went up 22%, if you were in it the day before, it went down 12. So, and if they had not got it turned in, if they had got delisted or filed for another extension, I guarantee it would have been back down into the 20s. So anyways, I just thought that was an interesting
Mike, have
thing.
you ever owned a stock that had some significant regulatory issue and it kind of got you burned or anything like that?
No, probably the most painful experience I had, I owned a stock, I'll just say I owned a stock, Peapod, which was, guess what? This was back, I don't know how many years ago, 20 years ago, and they were going to do online groceries. Wow. Like, that actually happens nowadays. But back then it was a new idea. And like, I was like, because I didn't like grocery shopping, I thought, wow, I have my groceries delivered to my house online. I love this idea. They were the first one. And what happened is their CEO was an executive, I want to say from Coca-Cola, and he resigned for health reasons. So that stock, and I owned it, was the leading loser on the NASDAQ that day, down over 50%. And I was like, what? What guy is sick? He calls it sick to work. I mean, and the stock dropped. Eventually they went. I mean, it never went up. It didn't like turn around or anything. I think it must have either acquired or went bankrupt. But, to feel that 50% loss in one day, and keep in mind, we're talking little dollars. It wasn't like my whole portfolio. And plus it wasn't that much money anyways. But to see a negative 50% on your stock for the day, it's painful. Compliance, would do it as well. So how about you, Corey? Did you ever have one like that?
Yeah, I happened to throw $10,000 into Valiant Pharmaceuticals about 15 minutes before the SEC announced their investigation into Valiant Pharmaceuticals, which ended up, the company got dissolved. I mean, it went to zero. So yeah, 15 minutes later, I was looking at 8,000, and this was probably 2016 or something, long time ago, 2015 maybe. And I, my instinct was, hey, I didn't know they were about to get investigated by the SEC 15 minutes ago. So I just took my lump and moved on, which I guess ended up that's a lesson to sometimes you just got to bail because it ended up going to zero anyway. So,
Yep. Yep.
but yeah, I mean, I timed that one perfect.
It happens. It happens. Well, let
Yeah.
me turn it over to you, and you can cover what you're seeing here.
Okay. Just want to look at this last month. So we're seeing some sector rotation, normal activity in a bull market. Go to a 1 month chart, you're seeing some softness out of that mag 7. Is it the mag 7? Is it the lag 7? We're about to find out over the course of this year. But we're seeing some softness over there. Now, Nvidia has bounced back after the DeepSeek debacle, if you want to call it that. But elsewhere in the market, things like Coca-Cola, uh, Philip Morris International. And I don't know. I'm not a Zen guy, but there's obviously a lot of Zen guys out there popping those Zens. The stock loves it. Hershey, Mondelez. These are not the stocks that can sustain rallies like this. And you're seeing, of course, some of that weakness in the Mag 7. So I know everyone's eyes are on Nvidia. My eyes are somewhere else to see where I really think are we going to see some continued weakness in the Mag 7, or are we going to see, because if you think about that heat map, that's kind of where the puck is right now. But in investing, you don't really want to go where the puck is right now. You kind of want to go where the puck is moving next. So would it be appropriate to bail out of the Mag 7 and to go after Philip Morris International? Probably not. We would like to see the puck rotate back to those Mag 7 quality world changing companies, right? But my eye, so everyone will see Nvidia's earnings after the market. That will be important. But Microsoft, nobody's talking about it. It's trading at a very, very interesting level. So a couple of years ago, it's trading at $250. Microsoft is kind of the leader in AI up front. They got in on OpenAI really early and so on. Since passing $400 a share in January of 2024, the stock spent that entire year kind of going 420, 400, 430, 400, 450, 400, 430, 400, bouncing above 400. Just this week, we saw it crack below 400 for the first time in over a year. That's the stock I'm watching. I know Nvidia is going to be important, but Microsoft being that third biggest company, it's going to be very interesting and I think very telling to see where does that stock go next. Does it go back to 450 or does it go down to 350? So I think that's going to be kind of the tell there. Mike, what do you think? Do you think one is more important than the other, or
No,
you know?
I mean, I think all these. I mean, obviously, Microsoft and Apple are probably a little. Apple definitely tied to the consumer, very, very much so. Microsoft more corporate and consumer, and then Nvidia. While yes, there's graphic chips for gamers, and that definitely tied to the corporate for the AI. So you kind of three different touch points between them, and those are the three biggest companies, as Corey showed on that one chart. So, um, yeah, I mean, Nvidia is gonna, and obviously, the quarterly report is a report card. It's the guidance of what's going to happen. Whatever Jensen says today, if Jensen's like, the corporations are doing well, that's what he's going to be speaking more towards. That could cause the whole market to go up. Or if he's like, hey, things are getting soft, 2025 is going to be tough, it could cause the whole market to kind of go down. So that's kind of what I see. Microsoft, that what I did was impressed, and you covered this the other day, is them coming out with their quantum chip and getting their Microsoft software, they're getting into hardware. I mean,
And Mike, to your earlier point, if you own Microsoft here through 2030 or 2035, you're going to be fine. It's
yeah,
just, where is the puck going right now, right?
Yep, that's right. So awesome. Well, Nvidia earnings, you're probably not sitting on the edge of your seat like Corey and I, and it usually come out, I don't know, 4:15, 4:30, something like that. We'll be like, oh, what's going to happen? We'll be clicking refresh to see, that, what's happening there. But anyways, that's what we do. So you guys can rest easy. Have a good one. Bye.